Hey all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, and today I welcome back Kevin Liddell and Lloyd Cappuccio, and we're going to talk about cooking thermometers, why you need them, what they're used for, and which ones you need to have. I'll be right back with Lloyd and Kevin.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Hey all, I want to introduce you to a company I just started working with, Fresh Jack's Organic Spices out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're a small, family-run company that's fast-growing. I've tried a bunch of their different seasoning blends and spices, and I can tell you they're all fresh, all organic. None of them contain artificial flavors or sweeteners. None of them have anti-caking agents or preservatives. They all taste like they were just made for you yesterday. Check them out, guys. They're on Amazon in the link below. They have different sample packs, different blends. Like I said, they also have the individual seasonings and spices as well. Fresh Jack's Organic Spices. Check them out, guys. I love them. Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I am Darren. I am your host. And today, I got the dynamic duo of Lloyd Cappuccio and Kevin Liddell back. We are going to talk about thermometers and why you need to use them, all the different kinds that are out there, why they're important, why if you don't use any kind of thermometer in your cooking, you're probably burning stuff and not making the best food you can make. So, Lloyd, welcome back. You are the first because you're the biggest.
That's true. I am. I think I got the biggest head, too.
Yeah. Lloyd is the Kosher Dosher, the Kosher Dosher blog. He is in all the Facebook groups that have anything to do with sous vide. You'll see his posts that are usually about, an hour to read them. When he posts up something, he's got 462 pictures of everything he's ever made. And Lloyd goes big time into a lot of his cooks. Kevin Liddell of Sous Vide Food and Fun, welcome.
Howdy. Welcome. Good to be back.
He is in the cold area of Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania, and he's been locked up in his house for the last year with COVID, and his hair is getting really, really long. So welcome, Kevin.
I'm not getting any skinnier.
I'm not either. Well, I'm trying, but we'll see. We'll see how this keto does.
Keto works.
It works, but it's awfully expensive. I'm finding that out. If I want to make anything that's got any kind of bread or anything, if you buy any bread or try to buy the flour and stuff, they charge you an arm and a leg for it. Let's talk about thermometers, why they're important, why you should use one, and what they can help you do when you're cooking. Even just the regular everyday home cook needs to have at least an instant read. Wouldn't you agree, Lloyd?
Absolutely. I've been using one for 30 years. I used to use the analog one. It take 5 seconds for the little dial to move, but very important for precision cooking. I use one all the time. Love
How
it.
about you, Kevin?
I got several.
Kevin, you've been cooking for a while. You cooked professionally and you were catering and all that. How long was it when you were using instant reads?
Oh, I've been using them. I mean, I remember my father when I was a kid using one that was stuck in the turkey all the time when he did turkey for Thanksgiving and Christmas. It probably off by 10 degrees, but he always used one. And then when I started cooking professionally, I always had, one or two on my sleeve or hanging on my collar. Those are mostly analogs. I remember, excuse me, I was actually in, I was in culinary school when those digital ones that had the wires and the probes that you could use outside of the oven, first came out, and those were kind of groundbreaking, pretty cool. I used those for quite a bit. I had a bunch. They never lasted very long, especially in a professional setting. So I always had those analog ones. I probably have 20 or 30 analog, those little, pencil type analog ones. And those work fine. They're cheap. You can get them for like $5. I have a few digital ones that are relatively good, and they're easy to calibrate. You calibrate them in ice water and just keep them calibrated, and they're as good as anything else. But there's so many new thermometers out there these days with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and also, I mean, the technology now is just amazing.
Yeah, when I was cooking professionally in restaurants, it was in the mid to late 80s, early 90s. We really didn't use them much in the kitchens then, because the only ones that they had were the crappy digital ones, and they really didn't work that well. They got better over time, but we still, when we were cooking, try to cook the steaks medium rare and stuff, we were doing the old try to touch it, to see how springy it was, and all the other tricks that we could try to do to figure out, and kind of tried to time it. But it was mostly guesswork. But I remember when the digital ones first came out, and everybody was like, wow, these are pretty accurate and we really need it. Now you couldn't, I couldn't live without one. I've got one out in my grill area for outdoor cooking, and I got one inside. I've actually got 2 or 3 inside. So, I mean, if you don't at least have a good digital instant read thermometer, you really need to get one, because it can help you, make a lot better food. And nowadays, that's what we're going to talk about too, is there's so many different ways you can use thermometers, and especially with you kind of hinted on it, Kevin, with the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi, we can monitor stuff from not even being in the house anymore. I know on the barbecue side, we've had the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, thermometers, and now we've got this, temperature controllers for smokers that are, like the Kamado grills, and just a regular, wood-fired smoker. You can use a temperature controller that has a little fan that blows and keeps it going and controls the temperature. So there's so many different things that are out there now. So yeah. And why is it so important to be able to monitor the temperature of your food and your ovens and your cookers?
Consistent results.
Quality.
Replication. Being able to replicate the same thing over and over again. It's not that difficult. Replication. Quality, like Kevin said.
You can't write a blog post for a cook for an hour and a half and then just say just for better results.
Well, it is quality, better results, being able to replicate something. So if you're telling somebody, I want you to make this recipe, and you don't tell them what the internal temperature is going to be, it's a hit and miss. So if you say, look, I want you to make this right here, I want it to an internal temperature of 130 degrees, and you're done. It's replication, accuracy, quality of product.
Well,
it's not rocket science.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the general thing would be for an everyday cook would be, if you want to know exactly how done your steaks are when you're cooking a steak, if you want a medium rare steak, if you don't have a digital thermometer or instant read thermometer, how are you going to figure it out? By cutting it open or kind of trying to guess? Mm-hmm. If you don't have a digital thermometer, you're hitting the miss. You're just trying to time it, and those aren't really the best ways to do it. So, but also, there's some things now that we know with, pasteurization and all that, the whole, you don't have to cook chicken to 165 degrees anymore, so you can kind of measure the temperature of your food and try to figure out the pasteurization and all that. And I'm not even talking about just with using sous vide. I'm just talking about being able to monitor the internal and external temperature of your food. There's so many different ways that it can help you instead of just knowing the exact doneness of a steak. So,
well, I mean, it gives you the ability to replicate, like Darren said, or Lloyd said. Now, if you go to a high-end steakhouse in this country, or anyway, the guys in there, the cooks in there have been cooking. They're doing hundreds of steaks a day. I guarantee they're not sticking a thermometer in each steak to see what the internal temperature is. They're feeling it. These guys know what they're doing. They've been doing it forever. But your average Joe isn't cooking 200 steaks a day and doesn't have the experience. So they need something to be able to get consistent results and see where, what the temperature of what they're doing is.
So digital versus analog. I know that the older analog ones, I know the ones, the really cheap ones are very, like Kevin, you kind of hit it on this. They're not always the most accurate, and they're really not, some of them you can't even calibrate them. So they're kind of, I guess it's better than having nothing, but
They take forever. Also, let's not forget the dial moves. You're waiting. The oven door is open. You sit there. You're losing heat. It takes 7 or 8 seconds for it to dial in. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
Yep.
I used to use, like I said, I had some cheaper ones, of course. I mean, there's some better, of course. The like with anything, the more you spend on something, the better quality. The Tell True barbecue thermometers, especially, that they have on some of the smokers and stuff, are a lot better than some of these really cheap Chinese things that you can get for $10 on Amazon. Definitely, so how they're made is always going to be a factor in how good they are. But of course, digital is always going to be better because of the.
I just bought. Why I own the ThermoWorks Mark IV. The reading I think is 2 seconds, and I just bought Inkbird. I think you put a link up there on in your group. It was like 50% off of the new Inkbird one. I just bought that too. So digital is the way to go, and you want a short time to read the temperature.
Yeah, I think just like with everything that's cooking related, anything related now, the technology has gotten so much better on these products that and with that, the technology getting better, it gets cheaper. So whereas you're saying the ThermoWorks MK4, which I have myself, those are the standard. They are the ones that everybody wants, the professional ones, and
Right.
they cost $100. The regular price is $100 on them. So they're kind of pricey, and you can find lots of instant read thermometers on Amazon or, anywhere pretty much cheap. The cheap Chinese ones, you can get them for $15-20, no problem. It doesn't mean they're always that good. Like I said, like you said, there's some that they'll take 5 to 6 seconds to read, and they might be off by 2 degrees. So if you're trying to get something that's more exact, you don't want to be 2 degrees off. That's for sure.
Oh.
You also want durability. Some of it's like the ThermoWorks is built for professional kitchens. It's waterproof, I believe. It has it's built to be beaten up. Some of these cheaper ones end up if you drop it in the sink, you're done. It gets wet. You leave it sitting somewhere where it's too hot, thing dies on you. You end up buying new ones every week. So durability is a big issue too.
Mine lights up, it glows in the freaking dark, it does everything.
And I think I like the ThermoWorks, the ThermoPen MK4 there. It's I think it's got a lifetime warranty, if I'm not mistaken. So
I don't know.
I know it's got a pretty big warranty because I've known guys that had them for like 2 or 3 years and they've sent it back and gotten new ones. So,
nice.
If it dies on its own, if it's something where you drop it in a deep fryer, I'm sure they're not going to cover it. But if it just dies on its own for some reason, I think they do have a pretty long warranty. So it's just like anything. The better quality stuff is going to cost you a little bit more money. So I kind of want to, go back into the instant read. So there's a million of them out there now. So there's really no excuse, even if you get a cheap Chinese one, to just get something, to have something in your kitchen, in your outdoor patio, so that you can use to monitor your food. So, not all of them are $100. Yeah.
And your pet also. I love being able to sit inside the house. Barbecue's outside, I can monitor the temperature of the pit. That's kind of nice.
Well, I'm just talking about instant reads. If you don't have an instant read, they're cheap enough now that everybody should be able to buy one without going, I can't afford you. Yeah, you can't afford
cheap.
The ThermoWorks, ThermoPen, because they're $100, but you can get a decent one for $20. So if you don't have an instant read and know how to use it, then you really need to. So then we go into the barbecue or oven type thermometers where you can monitor your food and the temperature of your grill, your smoker, your oven, and all that. So those have become a lot more prevalent. A lot of the competitors on the barbecue circuit and any kind of cooking circuit, you'll see them all over the place. And I don't think you really started seeing them till about 8 or 9 years ago, where they started getting cheaper, where people started realizing that they really needed to be able to monitor and know what the temperature of the food in the pit was, instead of just throwing something on there and letting it cook. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. Back to being consistent, accurate results, and the quality of the food you're producing.
Especially in competitions.
Oh, yeah. A few degrees to make a big difference.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I've seen is in innovation in the last few years is the different kinds and different options and how many different probes you can get in those, the kinds of probes. And they're just like instant reads anymore. You can get cheap ones that cost you, $20, and you can get ones that cost you, $200. And then nowadays they do more than just monitor the temperature. You can get the actual controllers that control a fan, that you can control your outdoor smoker and charcoal or wood fired grill with them. And they do a lot more. So all of these type of things have all these different, probes and thermometers on them. They're always monitoring something. Like I said, they're monitoring the temperature of the grill, and they're monitoring the temperature of the food. And some of these things with the controllers, you can actually be at Walmart shopping and control your smoker. If you get a warning that the smoker temperature is at 300 and you want it to be at 275, you can adjust the fan to stop blowing, and it will drop the temperature down. So if you look 10 years back, I don't think I would have thought these things were going to exist back then. And it just continues to get more and more.
I'm amazed some of those devices are actually allowed in competitions. They make it so much easier. They make everything so much easier.
The first competition pellet grill was the Fast Eddy, and the pit masters with the offset were really pissed off because people would bring their Fast Eddy pellet smokers, plug them in, put their racks of ribs in there and their brisket, and walk away for a couple hours. Go drink a beer.
Go take a nap.
Yeah.
But I had the guy from Barbecue Guru, and they were the ones that first created the first barbecue pit temperature controller.
I have it, by the way, in the original.
The one that they actually went out and started testing. They went to barbecue competitions and tried to talk to the competitors, and they would go, and all of the guys were like, that thing's never going to work. We don't need that thing. And they said they finally got to one competition, and one guy was like, okay, yeah, I'll use it. Let me use it and try it out and test it out for you. And the guy loved it and came back and said, can you get me more of those? And they said, okay, we finally got some. They were going to give up because the guy that invented it, he had some kind of valve company. And, they made these valves for like steam or some, industrial equipment. And he liked to cook, and he figured, I'm going to try to make this thing so I can use these valves things. So they used a totally different technology that they ended up actually selling. But like I was saying, he had all these people, and these were competitors. They're like, I don't need that thing. That's like, I don't know, some of these old time chefs that you get that poo-poo sous vide, they're the same way. I know how to read my pit. I know how to look at food and know when it's done. But, once you start using one of these and you can actually nail it down, I think people will start changing their mind. He said, now everybody uses them on the circuit. Back then it was just like, everybody's like, no, we don't need that. It's garbage. And then I guess it just took a couple guys winning when they were using those, because they were able to control their pit and control the, monitor the temperature and all that they actually now everybody that's on if it doesn't have built-in controls already, then they're using some kind of pit controller on it. So
you can also extend your cook.
I don't know if any I don't think sous vide's allowed in any barbecue competitions or anything. I don't know any of them.
No, you got to cook with fire. They won't allow it. They do allow it in the steak cook-offs, but I had the guy from that put together that started the steak cook-offs on, and he said that you have run into a time factor because the way the steak cook-offs work, you don't bring your own food. They give you the steaks. So you pick your steaks, and you only have a certain amount of time. I think they only give you like an hour and a half. So they don't give you enough time to really use sous vide and they're all ribeyes. So
that's not going to work.
The way I just use a microwave.
But the way those competitions work, and I've had a couple, the barbecue experts and guys on, even with the barbecue competitions anymore, they kind of get condensed down to where they're looking for just a certain profile anymore. And everybody's using the same rubs, the same, seasoning blends. They're trying to make everything look exactly the same instead of having creativity. Like with the steak cook-offs now, they're all look round. Like if you look at what they put out, you would never eat that at a steakhouse. because they got to have the grill marks, and the grill marks got to be perfect, and they got to be round, so it doesn't even look like a ribeye steak anymore.
It's
When
like the
they're
chili
done with it.
cook-offs too. Like the
Yeah.
chili cook-offs too. All the meat's got to be cut 1/4 of an inch so it cooks properly. When they add the spices, I don't like chili cook-offs. They suck.
They make it to where everybody has to pretty much produce the same type of food, and it doesn't make it fun. So now we move into the technology, still moving thermometers ahead, just thermometers with the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi. So now we got we can control our smokers from, shopping at Walmart. You can monitor the food temperature wherever we are. And now we've got the little Wi-Fi and Bluetooth single thermometers that aren't wired at all, like the meter, the meat stick. There's a bunch of those now. I guess the patent must have ran out to whoever had it because now you got Yumley's got one, you got Tapacue has one, and everybody's starting to come out with these Bluetooth Wi-Fi, just the probe itself, so you can put them in a rotisserie and all that. And now you can monitor, instead of having to stop your rotisserie and stick your instant read in there, you can have a probe in there the whole time and monitor it via your phone app as well. I don't know. I think every once in a while I'll look around and I'll go, what else can they come up with? And then they come up with something different.
Some of them can go into deep fryers, which amazes me.
Yeah, the meat stick is actually, you can put it in a deep fryer. It's 100% waterproof, so I can stick it in my sous vide bag, and I've done that a few times. Now, I think they're still working on that technology because those are really, really tiny, chips that are in there, and they got to, make them so where they can actually, survive the heat and all that kind of stuff. And so I think they're going to be nothing but getting better and better. And that leads us into talking about, I just had my podcast with Chris Young and his new product. Chris Young was the CEO of Chef Steps, made the Jewel, and he actually helped write Modernist Cuisine books and all that. He's been big into the modernist type cooking and actually technology in the cooking industry. They're coming out with a new thermometer he's working on, Combustion Inc., that's got 8 temperature probes on this little Wi-Fi, wireless stick, where you can actually measure the temperature of the surface of the meat, the internal, and your ambient temperature of your cooker and all that. So I think that's the next thing that's coming. So what do you guys think of something like that?
Oh my
I think
God.
it's brilliant. I can't wait till it comes out.
I asked Chris, Chris and I had an email dialogue, and I asked him, when are you designing the new oven for Breville? He says it's down the road, he's hoping. So I want the oven that he designs.
I think that the fact, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how they fit 8 sensors into that tiny little probe. It looks like it's only, 3 inches long, maybe. I don't, you know more than I do.
Yeah, I know he's got a working prototype, and I don't know. He said they're going to be able to release it for sale this year. That may be later. It could be December. It could be, how those things work. He hasn't decided if they're going to do a Kickstarter. I think he's got the money to just be able to put it together and do it on its own. I don't think he has to do a Kickstarter on it, but because it looks like they've already got a lot of it already done. He said that he was supposed to take this year off or last year off, but he ended up, working on it a lot more than he was, wanted to. So I think that they've got some things that he's thinking of, and where he's going to next is going to help a lot of the stuff that's been coming out, like with the Innova Precision Oven. One of the things that I like about that oven is that it does have a internal probe you can use inside the oven. It does have the steam function, so you can actually monitor your food in there like you would in a sous vide or in a smoker, and control it and do some things like we're going to talk about Delta T cooking here in a minute. So you can use that, but one of the things that doesn't do is monitor the temperature of the surface of the meat, which is one of the things that me and Chris were talking about that really can help you out a lot more and being able to monkey around with the temperatures of the oven and making sure you don't overcook your meat a lot more.
That's what makes his product different, is the ability to, the sensor to tell you what the surface temperature of the food is. None of the others can do that, as far as I know to this point. So I think that's what really sets his apart.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people understand it. You really don't need to understand it, I guess, if you don't want to. But it does help you if you're trying to perfect, something. Most, even just the instant read thermometers, just read the inside of the meat, and that's the last. Like he said, that's the last thing that the temperature changes at, is the inside. So you are wanting to know what the doneness is, so but if you can know what the surface temperature is, because the surface temperature is different than what the inside of your oven or your smoker or the surface that you're cooking on is. So you really, if you can understand how the different temperatures work in conjunction with each other, you can actually do some things with the temperatures of your cooker and monitoring that you couldn't do any other way. So I'm really looking forward for that thing to come out so I can play around with it as well.
Chris Young did a video on how to do that. He explained all the science and the how to and why it works on a tweet, I believe. So it's also at combustioninc, I believe.com. Here's a video. It explains all that, surface temperature, humidity, ambient temperature, internal temperature, and how to actually cook a protein in your oven that mimics sous vide or sous vide like results. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that's some of the things that I'm looking forward to playing around with. And there's people like us that are food geeks that like doing this stuff, but most people don't. They don't have the time for it. They just want, half the people order Uber Eats, or they stick something in the microwave, or they heat up a frozen dinner, and they're happy with it, or they order the home gourmet boxes and follow the instructions, and they don't really want to think about too much. But people like us that really want to understand the whys and the hows and be able to perfect something, we're always tinkering, we're always playing with new things and learning new techniques and methods and tips and tricks. That's why a lot of us are into sous vide. But your most average guys, you start talking about sous vide and their eyes glaze over and they're cross and they don't want to hear about it.
Or they complain and say that takes too long. Like, I posted some photographs of my sous vide burger, and I said how it took 2 hours and 45 minutes to pasteurize, 10-minute rest, a good sear. Oh, why would you want to do something like that when I can have a burger in 8 minutes?
And it's not only that, you still got people that will learn sous vide, and then now you introduce the probe for like on the Hydro Pro. You show them something. Well, hell, this has got a probe now where you can monitor the internal temperature while you're using your sous vide, and they go, well, why would you need to do that?
Oh my God.
So you get that. So it's not just, on barbecue or whatever. It's no matter, whenever you introduce something new, you're always going to have somebody that's going to poo-poo it and go, that's just a marketing ploy. And that's what I've heard. I heard people say, well, that's just a marketing ploy. You don't need to do that. Well, okay, it's not really a marketing ploy, especially with the Breville. They're selling it to restaurants and commercial kitchens that actually need it to monitor for HACCP and all that. But there's certain things you can do with it when you do monitor the internal temperature, because you don't know what the internal temperature is unless you monitor it. You're guessing, you're doing an algorithm, you're trying to figure it out. You're going by what somebody else might have did, 5 years ago when Baldwin was doing his tests with lab equipment. And that doesn't mean every piece of meat, cooks the same way. You're just guessing. But you have those type of people that will do that and go, well, what do you need that for? And it's just a marketing ploy. And it's not really. They don't. And what my conversation with Chris Young was just that was, he thinks when he's trying new things, it's more of how to make things better. Not he's like anti putting together a product just to market a product. It's not like I want to market a product to make money. It's I want to try to solve a problem. And the people that can't see the problems that these new products solve are just ridiculous to me.
Agree.
Yeah. I gave my sister immersion circulator. I've cooked for her before sous vide, and she always thought, she was like, "Oh, that's neat. This turned out really well." So I finally just gave her a circulator I had for Christmas, and I talked to her a few months ago and asked her if she ever used it. She was like, she said she felt it was a very limiting cooking method, and then was talking about how she thinks she's doing so well during the pandemic, cooking for herself and my nephews and keeping everyone fed all day long. And I was like, well, it's not, you could do all that prep on Sunday and then just reheat stuff the rest of the week. Your life would be so much easier.
You could do it 3 to 4 weeks out.
Yeah, and it's just and then you can leave that circulator running all the time, and whenever you need something, throw it in to reheat it, and then serve it, sear it, and serve it. Easy peasy.
I talked to a person the other day about sous vide, and I was talking about the advantages of pasteurizing chicken, for example, where you make 30 pieces of chicken, they stay in your refrigerator and extend the shelf life because of the temperatures in your refrigerator. And then when you want something like you just said, warm it up, throw it in the skillet, you're done. Oh, that seems like a lot of work. I said, what, you put it in the bath and walk away?
Yeah, it's less work. But yeah.
I don't understand that,
Well, and that's the mentality with a lot of the barbecue guys when you tell them, sous vide and then smoke it. And they're like, 48 hours on a brisket. That's crazy. And it's like, why? You don't have to sit there and tend it like a fire like you do on your offset smoker, where you have to actually got to stand next to it and feed it logs every 10 minutes or the fire goes.
You walk away.
You just let it run for 2 days and come back and then take it out and put 42 pounds of ice like Lloyd does on it so it can
50.
chill. Hey all, it's Darren. I want to take a second to talk about ThermoWorks and their ThermoPen and ThermoPop instant read thermometers. They are the industry standard and industry leading, most accurate, most durable, most dependable on the market. You'll find these in most professional kitchens. The ThermoPen is accurate within a half a degree, under 3-second readout time, and is the most durable on the market. The ThermoPop is a little bit more pocket friendly with about a 5-second read time, but still very reliable and dependable. Check out the ThermoWorks products in the link below. All right, Lloyd. So you've done. We've talked about ice long enough. All right, Lloyd. Let's get into some technical stuff. And Kevin, you're going to be in this too. But I know Lloyd's kind of played around with this a little bit more, especially now that he's got the Hydro Pro Plus there.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the Delta T cooking. I kind of talked about it a little bit with David, and kind of talked about it some, and some other episodes with some other people. So let's talk about Delta T cooking and what it is, and when you are able to monitor your temperatures in the sous vide, like you can, and even in the Anova Precision oven, you can monitor your internal temperature while you're cooking in a lower temperature. What is Delta T cooking, and how can it help you, and what can it do for you?
Okay, so Delta T cooking basically is having the bath temperature several degrees above the desired core temperature of your food. So, for example, your bath temperature may be at 136, but your desired protein core temperature is 133. The advantages, of course, is speed, textural differences. And what people don't realize is heat transfer occurs very, very slowly as the protein and bath start to equalize, come within 1 or 2 degrees. The heat transfer slows down dramatically. And by increasing your bath temperature just a couple of degrees, it speeds up the process between 30 and 50%. And Kevin and I have been talking about this for several years now. People can't tell the difference between 2 or 3 degrees. I created a whole post around that. But more importantly, you can cook your protein a little faster and some textural differences and more. I found, I just did the other day, a little bit better fat rendering too. So my go-to for ribeyes have always been like 133, 134, depending on the quality. And I just did a fast cook on the Hydro Pro Plus, where I used 133.6, 2 Celsius degrees above the final core temperature of 133. And I got done in 3 hours and 5 minutes and 9 seconds, opposed to taking 7.5 hours. And I think produced better results with the shorter cook. And I lost, I believe, less moisture, and I had better fat rendering. And
Now,
it also, good.
now, would you have better fat rendering internally as well, or is it mostly just the external fat? If you're doing like a roast or something like that that has a lot of external fat on it.
Well, I did a 3 pound, it was a 3 pound ribeye. And based on the visual inspection, I thought that the intra and intramuscular fat rendered down very nicely. But unless you do a side-by-side test, it's really hard to quantify those results. So I had to take a whole ribeye, cut off steaks, and then sous vide them separately, be able to compare all of them together. But the Delta T is really beneficial for like doing prime rib or rib roast. Like I did a whole post on that where not using Delta T, I think it took me, I did 133 for 5.69-inch prime rib. It took over 9 hours, I believe, to equalize. Where had I done, let's say, 2 to 4 degrees above the desired core temperature, I could have cut the time in probably 40 or 50%. And the advantages, of course, is better. I think you have more fat rendering and textural differences. And like Kevin and I talked about, you can't tell the difference between 133 and 136. You cannot tell the difference. So
yeah,
I know.
I know for a fact, like on prime rib, if you go from like a 132 to a 134 to 136, it's very hard to tell. If you put them side by side, you probably, most people couldn't tell the difference. It would still be medium rare to them.
And don't forget with Delta T cooking, you're not cooking one steak, let's say at 134, one, let's say 130. You're using the bath temperature might be set at, let's say, 136, but the desired core temperature is 132. So there's going to be a gradient that your eyes cannot detect. So the outer inches or half inch might be, let's say, 134. As you make your way to the center, it's 132. You can't tell the difference. And also the way it feels in your mouth is amazing.
Another benefit that most people that aren't professionals aren't going to realize or necessarily want to know about is the ability to get that, whatever you're cooking, from refrigeration temperature up into above like 125.6 in a quicker amount of time.
That's the other benefit.
If you can prove, show that on a graph to your health inspector who wants a HACCP program, and you can show that, I did it in this amount of time as opposed to a longer amount of time, it's going to make everyone happier. So you're more likely to, not have any issues from that end.
That's a good segue. I was about to talk about that too. Basically, you have a large diameter protein like a prime rib. I had almost 6 inches, and getting above the 125.6 in kind of a fast way using Delta T is amazing. It's fast.
Yeah, and getting back to your point there, Kevin, a lot of home cooks, especially, don't understand that products like that. ThermoWorks has had sous vide, internal sous vide thermometers for a couple of years now, and they've been marketing them to restaurants and food service kitchens.
I have those too. I have those too.
Yeah, but I mean, they've been out there. It's not like the Polyscience is something coming out with something new, but these have been out there for a while, and they're out there for a reason. They're not out there just, like I said, when I had somebody on my Facebook group say, "Oh, that's just a marketing ploy by Polyscience," it's like, what the hell are you talking about? That's because have no idea what the hell you're talking about. But it's so that they can monitor. There is still a reason to monitor an internal temperature of food, even though you're using sous vide, whether it be for HACCP plans for the health and health departments, because a lot of people don't understand using sous vide in a restaurant setting or a commercial kitchen is a lot different than using it at home. You don't have the health inspector coming into your house and asking you, the temperature of your food all the time, because you're not serving it to strangers.
I did a few years back, I did a salami. I used my ThermoWorks sous vide probes, and I want to say the casing was like 5.5 inches. And I only used like a 2 or 3 degree Delta T. Back to what Kevin says, trying to get the internal temperature up a little faster. But the other day I did, using the Hydro Pro Plus, I did a 120 millimeter casing. I think that's like 4.75 inches maybe. And I use a 10 degree Delta T, 10 degrees. That seems like a lot, but not in a salami. I did 158 until 148. And it took like, I believe, 3 hours and change, opposed to, say, 9 to 12 hours. I saved like probably 8 hours with this salami, and I did almost a 5-inch salami in 3 hours and change with a 10-degree Delta T, and it came out flawlessly. Just
Now,
you cannot tell the difference.
Would the texture on something like that be affected as much as like on the ribeye though, or is that just more time savings?
Time savings. Also, I sliced it on my deli slicer, and you cannot tell the difference. You just cannot. From the outer edge to the center, there's no difference visually or texturally. There's no difference at all. 10 degrees is very, very little.
I'm going to try some Delta T on some salmon and fish, because what David told me at Polyscience is that it's, tender, things like that are really where it kind of can help you out a lot as well.
Yeah, but the difference is that the fish thing tends to be a pretty dramatic difference. Like, he's probably talking about putting it in two separate in two separate water baths. The original one's probably around 183 degrees, and the second's probably 132. So you're getting,
that's different. What you're talking about, Kevin, is something that they said 2 water baths. What David said specifically on one of his videos, 183, like you just said, but putting a probe in there, but pulling it out. So 183 bath, probe in there. When it hits like 115, pull it, you're done.
Yeah. There's no redoing it. It's just, it's done with it. And
it's done.
It's supposedly it cuts down, on the albumin or whatever what is that?
Albumin.
It's a protein.
Albumin.
I can't pronounce it. Albumin. There we go.
Albumin. It cuts down on the albumin, and it makes the texture just like.
I need to try this.
Yeah.
But you didn't have to get like a 1-inch piece of salmon to really make a difference.
Yeah.
So I want to try this.
I bought salmon the last few times I was at Costco, but I couldn't find a really thick piece. Because I guess you got to have a pretty good thick piece in order to do it. You don't really want to do it with
an inch.
Yeah.
At least an inch. Wouldn't mind trying it with tuna.
It works great though.
Have you tried it with tuna before?
No, when I do tuna, I do a maximum of like 110.
I know, right?
So
I like tuna, done.
Yeah,
it's done.
I wouldn't sous vide tuna myself either. I'm just a quick sear on each side and have it nice and raw in the middle.
It's like sashimi.
So what else can Delta T help you do better, or how else can you use it to make better food?
I think David from Polyscience said it the best. Textural differences. People always, like when sous vide first started, or the last, let's say 5 years, newbies, look at this, I got pink all the way through. Well, sometimes it's nice to have textural differences, the way it feels when you bite into it. So texturally, I like some differences, like the ribeye. I posted pictures of that. You can actually tell the difference in texture when you're chewing it. Had a great chew to it. Just a wonderful chew to it. So textural differences, not visually, but textural differences, and bringing the core temperature up a little faster, of course, at the same time. And like Kevin alluded to, getting above the 125.6 as to that's one of the pasteurization points there is. So
it's also very useful. It's very useful for restaurant applications when you're,
passive.
But plus the time saving.
Yes.
If you get in and sometimes you get in at noon and you got to start serving at 5, and maybe you don't have 8 hours to sous vide a bunch of product, so you can do it in 3 hours or 4 hours, and you're good to go.
I'd also add for reviewers, sometimes just because you're doing Delta T doesn't mean that the protein doesn't need to stay a few extra hours at the core temperature to tenderize. So let's say you had a chuck roast, let's say you have a substantial chuck roast. And we know that chuck roast can take, 36 to 40 hours to cook, but it can take a very long time for it to equalize in the bath. So you might consider doing a Delta T, and then once it reaches that core temperature, lower the bath temperature down and hold it at that temperature for an extended period of time until it tenderizes. So you can save time, but also tenderize at the same time.
Yeah,
It's
and something like that too. And I think a lot of people, and I had somebody bring this up to me and one of the other groups when I posted, I did a delta T and it was only like 2 or 3 degrees higher than my target. And then I lowered it and they're like, oh, that's not really delta T. It's only 2 or 3 degrees. It's supposed to be like 4 to 8 or whatever.
oh my
You
god,
know, and people get into minutia like that. And it's like, no, really, I was doing a 48-hour cook. So I delta T'd it to get it up to my target. Then
yes.
I dropped the temperature down. So I only had to drop the temperature 2 or 3 degrees. So, yeah, there you go. I was tenderizing
I didn't
the
know
rest of the
delta
way.
T was. I didn't know delta T was defined as 8 degrees. Oh my god.
Well, yeah, it was
Oh
like,
my
you know,
god.
just because he probably read an article where somebody did it like that. And now, of course, all of it's got to be like that. But, you know, it could be anything over the temperature, your target temperature. It could be 1 degree and still be delta
Delta T.
T.
Fast
Yeah.
cook.
So,
Well, I plan on doing a couple of different ribeyes, and I'm curious to know if I can go to a butcher and get, let's say, 2 or 3 ribeyes. I like to be able to cook one Delta T, exactly the way I did it before. Hit my desired core temperature, pull it out, lower the bath temperature, and then put it back in for an extra 2 hours and play around with the different temperatures to see what I like. Again, it's personal preferences. What you think is a good texture.
yeah, and that's the fun part of experimenting. But one
And
of the
eating,
things
you
when
have to
I
eat
was, yeah, when I was talking, you know, addressing the one guy who was giving me garbage, it's like you realize that to get that last 2 degrees on a long cook, you know, especially on something like a big,
Oh,
thick brisket or something like that, it takes a long time for that last 2 degrees to go. So even if you're only 2 or 3 or 4 degrees higher, it's still, you're going to get there quicker, and you can lower it and still keep it in the bath because it's still not going to move as much. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, people get kind of crazy, but I think also people don't understand that doing something that's only cooking for 2 or 3 hours and you're able to cook it in, you know, or for 3 hours, you can cook it for 2 hours or what have you, is different than cooking it for 48 hours and being able to cook it in 36 and get the same results. So it all depends on what you're cooking, what the thickness is, you know, and the type of protein or food you're cooking.
like
It
I
ain't
wouldn't
going to work.
suggest a Delta T for a New York steak. I would
Yeah.
suggest it, but for like a 2.5 inch ribeye, or a chuck roast or a prime rib that's pretty thick.
Or,
Yeah,
well, I do it on a New York strip just for the time savings because I usually do New York strips longer than I do a ribeye, you know, because I want it to tenderize. So
yeah.
I would do it so I could get to the core temperature a little bit sooner and then let it ride.
Well, I'm
But,
talking like a New York strip that may be an inch thick.
oh, yeah, those
I
are,
would, yeah. But like a
who
2 inch
eats
steak,
those?
yeah. Oh my god, I love big old thick steak. So New
Yeah.
York definitely needs
That's why
several more hours.
I cut my own steaks. I don't buy the, you know, thin crap that they cut at the supermarket.
Mm-mm.
So what about for vegetables? Any reason to do vegetables that way? Since they cook usually pretty quick at a high temperature anyway.
I'm not a big vegetable guy.
I don't.
So
I
I'll
don't.
tell you what, I like
I'm.
cooking vegetables sous vide, but you
I
got to cook them
do
at a high temperature because A,
186 at least.
yeah, I cook them in there because A, I don't have to boil them or steam them where it's removing a lot of the flavor. And C, I can cook it to where it's still crisp and it's still got a bite to it. It's not soggy and all that. And I know that it's not going to overcook. So that's why I do it. I mean, I'm not trying to
I don't think
tenderize it
so
or, yeah.
because
I've never.
uh,
I've never actually heard of anyone probing vegetables. To be
Yeah,
honest,
like I said, I don't think it would make a difference. I mean, if you
I
really, because
guess
you're
what you
cooking it at
could
such a
do.
hot temperature anyway, and 2 or 3
So
degrees is not going to really bother me. If I cook them at 188 instead of 186, it's not going to bother me anyway.
well, to cook a vegetable to break down the structure is between like 186 and 194. So whether you pull it at 30 minutes or 35 minutes because of you cooked a little higher, I don't see the benefit of Delta T with vegetables at all.
Yeah, neither do I, and that's why I kind of brought it up because I want to make sure people understand that it doesn't benefit everything. You know, there's certain things that it's not going to benefit. But all right, guys, so Delta T cooking, we're all going to start doing it more and more of it and start posting up about it. Correct?
Me, yes. In fact, I'll be posting my veal mortadella where I did a 10-degree Delta T. Guys, look forward to seeing it. We should be looking forward to seeing it.
Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do some more. I don't do it that often for myself because I have the time to just do equilibrium cook. But if I start writing up some doing some tests or that sort of thing, I'll definitely do delta T stuff and play around with it. I've done it. I don't need to do it. But I need to
would
be able
that
to
be
teach it.
something? Would that be something you could be able to teach to your restaurants and stuff when you get out there and start going out and like you're wanting to do with the teaching them how to use the sous vide?
Oh, it's absolutely something that I would teach and demonstrate. I'd do a side by side, have a couple tanks running, and show them, how much of a difference it can make, and say, if you're in a time crunch and you need to get this done, and you don't have 12 hours, and you want to do it in 6, then this is how you do it, and you're going to get good results, and then actually demonstrate it to them. It's a very useful thing. It's for the average home cook. It's not something that, I've got the time to put something in the bath and just let it go and wait till it achieves equilibrium on its own. I don't need to necessarily measure it or probe it, but doing it for, teaching HACCP and safety stuff at a restaurant or catering, that's definitely something that's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not really suggesting that home cooks need to be doing this stuff, just to know that they can. I mean, people like me who are curious and Lloyd who likes to understand how things work, I think it's good to be able to do this stuff. And then you can understand that, the restaurants and commercial kitchens have a little bit different, use for it than we would, definitely, because they have the health department and the HACCP plans they have to abide by. And it's, to be able to show the health department that you actually cook something for less time at the lower temperature, and it's going to do nothing but benefit them. But it's something to where if, food geeks like me want to play around with, we can, but I definitely don't want to say it's something you have to do. It's just something cool that you can do that.
Gee whiz. It's like, wow. Gee whiz.
And you can get different results. Yeah. You can get some better results. Is it going to be something where the results this much different than, not doing it? Probably not. It's probably, I don't think anything that we do now, really is hugely different than something we could have done 10 years ago. It's just that we're able to monitor it better, and it's the little things, it's like, even when I was talking to Chris Young, it's the more we can narrow down the gap of, be able to get something, a little bit better. It's always going to be, even though it's just a little bit better, it's still better. Right.
I think about where I started, 11 years ago, 12, 13 years ago with sous vide, 2008, and where I am today. I knew nothing. Warm water, throw a chicken breast in there, a couple hours. Oh, it's pretty good compared to where we are today. It's amazing.
But
if you listen to Chef Gerard from Cuisine Solutions, he admits back when he started, he didn't know what the hell he was doing, and they were doing everything wrong. He looks back at it today and like, boy, we're lucky we didn't kill everyone.
Yeah. And he said that on my podcast, as a matter of fact. And it's like, but I think we all do that. When I first started doing barbecue, who does a brisket for the first time and goes, came out perfect, no problem. You learn from that. Now get out of here. Put your hand down, Lloyd. You didn't do it. But yeah, I mean, there's always a learning curve, but it's fun. I mean, people like me like to learn. We don't just, of course we'll look at things and try to do it as best we can, the first time out, but we're always going to figure out something later that we can change and fix and make it better.
I think what sets us apart is that, at least for me, I think this applies to you guys too, we enjoy the process.
Right.
I enjoy the process. I love it.
It's funny. It just reminded me of I remember it was the first time I ever cooked sous vide. I had baby potatoes, and I put them in with whatever meat I was cooking, like 135 degrees, and pulled those out. And raw potatoes for dinner. I was like, these potatoes didn't work out real well. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Learning curve.
Well, and that's like, you'll see people and you can tell the new ones because they'll put the whole rosemary and the butter and in their bags. And you're like, you're only putting the rosemary exactly where it touches the meat, right? So use powdered stuff. Thanks guys for joining me. Let's, we'll do this again in another month or so. And let's see if we can get Douglas Baldwin on.
Baldwin.
Since he's your best buddy, Lloyd, let's see if we can get Douglas
I
Baldwin
would,
on and answer some of our
my
questions.
best buddy. But have you reached out to him at all? Have you reached out to
I
him?
think I'm letting you do that for us. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me. I look forward to the next time you guys are on. Hopefully our listeners got some information that they're looking for, why they need to use at least an instant read thermometer at least. But, there's plenty of thermometers out there that, that's actually new technology coming out that I tell you what, it's every time you turn around, there's something new coming out, but I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for joining me. Thanks, Kevin.
Good being on.
For taking time out of your busy day. And Lloyd, thanks again for wearing a shirt.
I'm just thinking about saying, all right, bye, guys.
Thanks again. I'll see you again on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Well, all right, guys. Thanks again for joining us on the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you follow us on the Fire and Water Cooking YouTube channel as well. And I'll see you again on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Thanks, guys.